Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Ben Talks Talent Conversations. Today, I have Rusty Fulling, and Rusty Fulling is the founder and CEO of Fulling Accounting and Management Services. Rusty, how are you doing today?
Hey Ben, great to see you. I told you earlier I really enjoy your background. Reminds me of some travels I've done as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yours is a real life background as opposed to mine, which is
Yeah.
just like an awesome picture I took. Um, we'll tell you what, there's a lot I want to cover today. So I want to jump right in. You are a person who started your own business, which is something that I know a lot of people aspire to. And when they think about that, they think like, oh, wow, I wish I could do something like that.
Mm.
Whenever I talk to someone who has started their own business, a lot of questions come to mind. But for you, I'd love to ask what prompted you to do that? And what was it like starting out, you know, founding a business and growing it?
Yeah. I started in April 2000, so just a few years ago. And part of my prompting was just working way too many hours at the job that I was in prior. And
Yeah.
started out and pretty lean in the beginning. And what I realized is I had really just jumped to another job. I really hadn't created a company at that point. And I think that can be a challenge for a lot of people that say, hey, I want to do something different. They don't always do it as a company. They just do it as a glorified job, and I just happen to be the CEO of my job.
Yeah. Yeah. So, when you started out and you first got into it, tell us a little bit more about what that was like.
Yeah.
Like some of the challenges, some of the wins. Like, give people who can see themselves maybe doing that, like
Yeah.
a sneak peek of like what their life might be like if they try doing that and they jump in.
Yeah, I had somebody this week was talking about starting a job. I can't wait to set my own hours and just do whatever I want to do, and that can be pretty short-lived if you need to make money doing that. So being intentional about that, I think can be of value. We had three little clients that we started with years ago, and what's neat is one of those clients 25 years later is one of our biggest clients, and so starting out with a little bit of business definitely helps. And
Yeah.
we had one other team member, and so that was helpful to have somebody to collaborate with and do things together with. But we did that pretty much two, maybe one or two, three people for my goodness, first 10 years of our business, and just
Okay.
kind of putted along. And it was a good, we'll call it a lifestyle business, meaning again, kind of a glorified job.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, Okay, so let me ask you this because when you get into it, it sounds like okay, things might start off well, like
Yeah.
okay, there's the enthusiasm and
Yeah.
excitement, but things don't always go well. Like sometimes I imagine, you know, stuff hits the fan, right? Things
Yes.
go wrong, things go sideways. Um, when that's the case, like as a person who is basically tasked with the survival of the business they created, how do you handle it? And what are
Mm.
some of the lessons that you learned in those circumstances?
Yeah. I think some of the how do you handle it probably with time, or hopefully does a little bit. But I remember early on, Ben, a recruiter. If you were a friend of mine and could show up at least one time, oh, you'd be a good hire. And that wasn't always the best, and so that was a challenge I think early on. One of the things that when you talk about hitting the fan, sometimes those early hires aren't too devastating, but it's when you get a little bit later in the business and you make some of those mishires, those can really cause some damage, reputation wise and just overall business wise. And so things in place where we hire better, that really has been helpful in the process.
Yeah. I mean, as someone who works in recruitment, I can certainly
Yes.
appreciate that.
Yes.
I mean, if you've got a team of five and
Yeah.
you bring someone on, and
Yeah.
that person is like you can however you want to cut it, like a bad fit for the role you hired them for. I mean, the cost of that, the cost of team morale, the cost to client interaction if they are client facing, just the cost of paying them and having to replace them. I mean, it can be huge for someone who owns a business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it does just it can definitely set you back. So I think that recruiters plug in for you. Recruiters are really helpful in that process, or the good recruiters are. I'll put it that way. So
Yeah, well, and there's, I can tell you, I can say this as a recruiter, there's a massive difference between a good recruiter and a not good recruiter. And the reality is there are plenty of both. Um, the industry has a very low barrier to entry. So you'll get some people who have no idea what they're doing, and they're not going to be able to be um, as effective of a partner. That's just the
yeah,
reality of
definitely.
it.
Yeah, definitely. You're talking about kind of what have you learned? Definitely looking for culture fit. I would almost
Yeah,
say culture fit would equal or maybe trump even the tactical or the skills fit in a lot of
yeah.
cases. A lot of times you can teach skills, but boy, and attitude and some of those can be a tough coaching up. So
Yeah, and I would say just to add on to that, because I totally agree, there are a lot of things that make someone a good fit or not a good fit for an organization. And just some of that is their ability to do the job. And so many people think like I can do the job, what's the problem? But there's so many different factors that play into, is this going to be a good fit for our team over the long term?
yeah, yeah,
And that stuff matters.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned in our first conversation when you and I met is that you've had the benefit of learning from younger leaders, right? So being a leader yourself, being able to learn not just from other people who are peers to you or have done the things that you're doing, but also from people who are on their way up, which is interesting. I haven't heard a lot of people say that. What are some of the lessons you feel that you have learned from the younger leaders you've had the benefit of engaging
Yeah,
with?
yeah. When we were talking about this, we were talking about some missions and different things. I think both of us, and it reminded me of a time when our oldest daughter, she was around 17, and we took a trip to Honduras where she was going to teach about 7 or 8 ladies how to use a solar and be able to create a business. Each of them created their own businesses. And so she had prepared all the supplies, everything was ready to go. We get down there, and guess what doesn't show up? All the supplies.
Yeah.
And so, I would have just canceled and watching her go out to these bodegas and just finding scraps of this and that and just getting, we'll call it be scrappy. And I
Yeah.
think that was one lesson that I learned, is just be scrappy. And the thing is, she had done so much preparation. She had put in the reps that she knew
Yeah.
exactly what she needed. And so be scrappy, put in the reps. And then the third lesson I think I learned from watching her be innovative in how she used those scraps. And it didn't go as planned, but boy, the end result was probably better than even what she had planned for. And so I think that was just a fun lesson again after our last conversation that just reminded me, be mindful of those lessons from younger leaders. Sometimes
Yeah.
we can dismiss those, but there's so much to be learned. I think from younger generations that yeah are going to pass us up, down the road.
Yeah. Well, in that story in particular, I haven't heard that story, so I'm hearing it live as we're
Yeah,
talking,
yeah,
and my reaction to that is how easy it would have been to have been just incredibly disappointed by that, and just okay, well, I guess the whole thing is shot.
yes,
Um, but yeah, I mean, so much in life isn't what happens to you; it's how you react to it.
yeah,
And reacting in that way obviously turns a negative situation to a very positive one, which is great.
yeah, yep, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, so last question, classic end to the interview. I love ending like this. What are you passionate about outside of work?
Yeah, well, definitely my wife of 33 plus years and my kids and grandkids now. But one of the things that I've really enjoyed here in the last 6 or 7, maybe 8 years now is getting out on the running trails. I've never been a runner and just started doing some of that and with some missional things we were involved with. But just getting to meet people on the trails and just amazing conversations. So that's something that I've really enjoyed, those morning runs, I would say, over the last 7 or 8 years.
Yeah. Well, this is funny. I never, for those of you watching, I always tell people, hey, I'm going to ask you what you're passionate about, but don't tell me because I want to be surprised by it. This is always new to me. I'm a runner myself.
Hey, there you
So,
go.
I
Yep,
weight train, 3 days a
yep,
week, but I
yep.
run 4 days a week.
Perfect. Yeah,
And I love doing races,
yeah,
and it happens to be something that I would say I've discovered over the last probably 10 years. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I did my first like official race 10 years ago. Um, but I love it. It's a huge part of my enjoyment too.
Yeah, yeah. It's just fun. I get involved with it through World Vision, which is a mission project that helps provide clean water in areas that don't have it. And so, yeah, that was kind of the instigation of getting me out on the trail. And boy, just the again relationships, the groups, the conversations. Boy, definitely worth it. So yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we'll have
Well,
to connect.
I'm gonna have to look up.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
we're
have to
gonna have
look
to
up
connect.
World Vision now. Now
Yes,
it seems
yeah.
now I'm like interested in learning a little bit about them and what they do.
Yes. Well, we'll have to connect up then, Ben, and hit one of the trails somewhere between us. So.
Love it. That sounds like a good plan. Well, Rusty, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. We appreciate you jumping on the pod.
Hey, bet. Hey, thanks, Ben. Appreciate all you're doing.
All right, take care.
Bye.